The lands that would become the Czech Republic have been inhabited for millennia. Archaeological evidence reveals human presence dating back to the Paleolithic period, with significant Celtic settlements emerging around 500 BCE. The arrival of Slavic peoples in the 6th century CE marked a pivotal transformation, establishing agricultural communities that formed the foundation of Czech civilization. The 9th century witnessed the rise of the Great Moravian Empire, the first major Slavic state in Central Europe. Under rulers like Mojmír I and Rostislav, this empire encompassed much of present-day Czech Republic, Slovakia, and parts of Hungary and Poland. The empire became a crucial bridge between Western and Eastern Christianity. The arrival of Byzantine missionaries Cyril and Methodius in 863 CE brought Christianity and the Glagolitic script to the region. Though Latin Christianity eventually predominated, this period established the Czech lands as a center of learning and religious development. The empire's decline in the early 10th century, pressured by Hungarian invasions and internal conflicts, set the stage for the emergence of the Bohemian Duchy. The Premyslid dynasty established Bohemia as a significant medieval power. The legendary good king Wenceslas, assassinated in 935 CE, became the patron saint of Bohemia. The elevation of Bohemia to kingdom status in 1198 under Ottokar I marked a new era of prosperity. Ottokar II expanded the kingdom from the Baltic to the Adriatic, though his death in battle against Rudolf of Habsburg ended this expansion. The Premyslid line ended with Wenceslas III in 1306, leading to the Luxembourg dynasty's rise. The ascension of John of Luxembourg in 1310 began a new chapter in Czech history. However, it was his son, Charles IV, who transformed Bohemia into the jewel of medieval Europe. Crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 1355, Charles IV made Prague the imperial capital and one of Europe's largest cities. Charles IV's reign represented the Czech Golden Age. He founded Charles University in 1348, the first university in Central Europe, and initiated the construction of the iconic Charles Bridge and St. Vitus Cathedral. The Golden Bull of 1356 established the electoral system of the Holy Roman Empire, with the King of Bohemia as one of the 7 prince-electors. The period saw remarkable cultural and architectural achievements. Prague Castle was expanded, the new town was established, and trade flourished. The kingdom's wealth, derived from silver mines and strategic trade routes, funded magnificent Gothic architecture and attracted scholars, artists, and merchants from across Europe. The preaching of Jan Hus, influenced by the writings of John Wycliffe, sparked a religious reformation that preceded Martin Luther by a century. Hus criticized corruption in the Catholic Church and advocated for reforms, including communion in both kinds for lay people and services in Czech rather than Latin. The execution of Hus at the Council of Constance in 1415, despite promises of safe conduct, outraged the Bohemian nobility and common people. This event triggered the Hussite Wars, a series of religious and social conflicts that devastated the kingdom but demonstrated the military prowess of Czech forces. The Hussites, led by brilliant commanders like Jan Žižka, developed innovative military tactics using war wagons and early firearms. Their victories against several crusades sent by the Catholic Church established them as a formidable force. The Hussite movement split into moderate Utraquists and radical Taborites, with the moderates eventually prevailing. The Council of Basel in 1431 and subsequent negotiations led to the Compacts of Basel, which granted certain concessions to the Hussites. This period established Bohemia as a religiously pluralistic society and strengthened Czech national identity. The election of Vladislaus II Jagiellon in 1471 brought Polish influence to the Bohemian throne. His reign and that of his son Louis II saw the strengthening of noble power at the expense of royal authority. The Battle of Mohacs in 1526, where Louis II died fighting the Ottomans, ended the Jagiellonian dynasty in Bohemia. The Habsburg Ferdinand I claimed the Bohemian throne through marriage, beginning nearly 4 centuries of Habsburg rule. This transition marked the beginning of gradual Germanization and re-Catholicization of the Czech lands. The Habsburgs, while bringing stability and connecting Bohemia to a vast European empire, also imposed increasing centralization and religious uniformity. The period saw continued economic prosperity, particularly in mining and trade. The discovery of silver deposits in Jachimov made the region wealthy, and the taler coins minted there became the basis for the word dollar. However, growing religious tensions between Catholic Habsburgs and Protestant Bohemian nobles set the stage for future conflicts. The defenestration of Prague in 1618, when Protestant nobles threw imperial governors from Prague castle windows, sparked the 30 Years' War. The subsequent Battle of White Mountain in 1620 proved catastrophic for Czech Protestant nobility and marked the beginning of the Counter-Reformation. The Habsburg victory led to mass executions of Protestant leaders, confiscation of noble estates, and forced re-Catholicization. German became the language of administration, and Czech culture faced systematic suppression. The Jesuit order played a crucial role in this process, establishing schools and promoting Catholic education. The war devastated the Czech lands, with population declining by an estimated third. Many Protestant nobles fled into exile, and their estates were redistributed to Catholic loyalists, often of German origin. This period, known as the Dark Age of Czech history, saw the near extinction of Czech Protestant culture and the dominance of German language and customs among the upper classes. The post-war period witnessed a cultural transformation as Baroque art and architecture flourished under Habsburg patronage. The reigns of Maria Theresa and Joseph II brought significant reforms, including the abolition of serfdom and religious tolerance. Joseph II's patent of toleration allowed limited Protestant worship, while administrative reforms modernized the empire's bureaucracy. The Czech lands became some of the most prosperous in the Habsburg Empire, though German remained the dominant language of education and administration. The late 18th century marked the beginning of the Czech national revival, a cultural and political movement aimed at restoring Czech language, culture, and national identity. Scholars like Josef Dobrovsk and Josef Jungmann worked to codify and purify the Czech language, while writers like Karel Hynek Mácha created modern Czech literature. The movement gained momentum in the 19th century with figures like František Palák, who wrote the first comprehensive history of the Czech people, and Pavel Josef Safarik, who studied Slavic languages and cultures. The establishment of the Czech National Theatre in 1881 became a symbol of cultural resurgence. The 1848 revolutions brought temporary political awakening, with the Pan-Slavic Congress in Prague advocating for Slavic rights within the Austrian Empire. Though the immediate political goals were not achieved, the movement strengthened Czech national consciousness and laid the groundwork for future political developments. The 19th century transformed the Czech lands into one of the most industrialized regions of the Austrian Empire. The development of textile manufacturing, mining, and heavy industry created a new working class and contributed to urbanization. Railways connected the Czech lands to broader European markets, facilitating trade and economic growth. The region became a major industrial center, producing textiles, glass, machinery, and steel. This industrialization strengthened Czech political consciousness and created the economic foundation for future independence. World War I created the conditions for Czechoslovak independence. Czech and Slovak leaders, including Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, Edvard Beneš, and Milan Rastislav Stefanik, formed the Czechoslovak National Council in exile, lobbying Allied powers for recognition of an independent Czechoslovak state. The war effort strained the Austrian Empire, and growing discontent among Czech soldiers and civilians weakened imperial authority. The Declaration of Independence on October 28, 1918, marked the end of Habsburg rule and the birth of Czechoslovakia. The Pittsburgh Agreement of 1918 outlined the framework for the new state, promising autonomy to Slovak regions. The establishment of Czechoslovakia under President Tomáš G. Masaryk represented the fulfillment of Czech national aspirations. The new state, comprising Czech lands, Slovakia, and Ruthenia, faced significant challenges including ethnic minorities, economic reconstruction, and territorial disputes. The interwar period saw remarkable democratic development. Czechoslovakia became known as the island of democracy in Central Europe, maintaining parliamentary government while neighboring countries succumbed to authoritarianism. The economy prospered, particularly in manufacturing and export industries. However, the state faced significant ethnic tensions, particularly with the German minority in the Sudetenland. The rise of Nazi Germany and the advocacy of Konrad Henlein's Sudetengerman Party for Autonomy created increasing pressure on the Czechoslovak government. The Munich Agreement of September 1938 forced Czechoslovakia to cede the Sudetenland to Germany, effectively dismembering the country. The remaining Czech lands were occupied by Nazi Germany in March 1939, establishing the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia. Nazi rule brought persecution of Jews, intellectuals, and political opponents. The Holocaust decimated the Jewish population, while resistance movements organized both domestically and abroad. The assassination of Reinhard Heydrich in 1942 led to brutal reprisals, including the destruction of Lidice and Lekaki. The war period saw massive population displacement, forced labor, and cultural suppression. However, underground resistance continued, and the Czechoslovak government in exile, led by Edvard Benes, maintained international recognition and prepared for post-war reconstruction. The liberation of Czechoslovakia in 1945 initially restored democratic government, but the Communist Party's growing influence culminated in the coup of February 1948. The establishment of communist rule under Klement Gottwald marked the beginning of 4 decades of authoritarian governance. The early communist period saw rapid industrialization, collectivization of agriculture, and the suppression of political opposition. The Stalinist purges of the 1950s targeted party members and ordinary citizens alike. The death of Stalin in 1953 brought gradual liberalization, but the system remained fundamentally unchanged. The 1960s brought the Prague Spring, a period of political and cultural liberalization under Alexander Dubček. The attempt to create socialism with a human face ended with the Warsaw Pact invasion of August 1968, which crushed hopes for reform and initiated the period of normalization under Gustav Husák. The following 2 decades saw economic stagnation, cultural suppression, and the growth of dissident movements. Charter 77, led by figures like Václav Havel, documented human rights abuses and called for political reform. The economic and social problems of the 1980s, combined with changes in the Soviet Union under Mikhail Gorbachev, created conditions for revolutionary change. The fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of communist regimes across Eastern Europe created the context for Czechoslovakia as peaceful transition to democracy. The Velvet Revolution of November 1989 began with student demonstrations and quickly spread across the country. The revolutionary movement, led by Václav Havel and the Civic Forum, demanded free elections and the end of communist rule. The regime's inability to use force effectively and the population's overwhelming support for change led to the rapid collapse of the communist government. The transition period saw the election of Václav Havel as president and the implementation of economic reforms. However, growing tensions between Czech and Slovak political leaders led to the decision to dissolve Czechoslovakia peacefully. The Velvet Divorce of January 1, 1993, created two independent states, the Czech Republic and Slovakia. The establishment of the Czech Republic marked the beginning of democratic development and European integration. Under President Václav Havel and Prime Minister Václav Klaus, the country implemented market reforms and democratic institutions. The 1990s brought significant economic transformation from a plan to a market economy. The Czech Republic joined NATO in 1999 and the European Union in 2004, fulfilling aspirations for Western integration. The country weathered the 2008 financial crisis relatively well and has maintained stable democratic institutions. Recent years have seen the presidencies of Václav Klaus and Miloš Zeman, with significant political changes including the rise of new parties. The country continues to balance European commitments with national sovereignty concerns. The history of the Czech Republic represents a remarkable journey from medieval kingdom to modern European democracy. Throughout centuries of foreign domination, the Czech people maintained their cultural identity and democratic aspirations. The establishment of the independent Czech Republic in 1993 fulfilled these historic aspirations while opening new chapters in the nation's development. Today, as Czech Republic stands as a testament to the resilience of its people and their commitment to democratic values. From the medieval splendor of Prague to the modern challenges of European integration, Czech history demonstrates the enduring power of cultural identity and democratic ideals in shaping national destiny.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more engaging historical content.